Welcome to Backstage with Richard Ridge. We kick off the new year with my BroadwayWorld and Screen Actors Guild Foundation Conversations Q&A series, which celebrates the vibrant theater community here in New York City and the union actors who aspire to have a career on both stage and screen. This special event, which is coming from the New School, is a conversation with the electrifying cast of one of this season's most celebrated new plays, the National Theatre's Olivier Award-winning production of The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. So please welcome the company, led by Alexander Sharp, who is making his stunning Broadway debut. Enjoy. Was there something specific that helped you unlock the character for you during rehearsal, or was it a lot of little things?
Watching Alex was so, truly was like instrumental. I remember thinking when we started this process that Alex and I were both the youngest cast members, and he was coming straight out of school, and we both had kind of the least experience. And I was like, well, at least I'll have someone to sort of feel like I'm trailing behind everyone. And then we opened our scripts the first day, and Alex's script was filled with all of these notes, and I was like, oh, great. So I think watching Alex for the six weeks, was that how long we rehearsed? Six or something, plus
six,
tech, 7, I don't know. Watching Alex, and because he's a different person, there were different parts of the show that he thought were very important that hadn't even crossed my mind, that I sort of just breezed on by, and he would pick out these tiny details that I never in a million years would have recognized as, unlocking sort of Christopher's brain. So I think seeing and hearing someone else do the part was so helpful. So I pretty much just copy exactly what he does. And
I would just say that the play, to me, besides obviously being about Christopher, is really about being a parent. And I'm a parent. And actually a lot of us are in the company. And so often I think what's been helpful to me is to kind of bring it back to myself more and more, and think about my own sons and what it would be like to be in the situation, or the many times that I do my best and fail, with my children. And so in a way, I feel like the similarities between myself and the character have been most helpful.
Yeah, echoing that, my character, have you guys seen the play? Okay, I didn't know if we were talking to people who had seen it or not, so I didn't know what I should say. But, at the time of the play begins, my character's been a single parent for a couple of years. And I remember having this experience. We have twins, and my wife was out of town on a job, and my kids were young, and I was alone with them a lot. That's hard for any of you who have ever been through that. It's very, very hard. And I remember having this physiological feeling. I kept looking at the front door. The kids were over here, and I'm dealing with them, and they're crying and pooping, and I kept looking at the front door. And
it was Jan that was pooping, not the twin.
Why am I looking at the front door? And I realized that somehow in my body, I had the feeling that I had done my tour of duty. When are the reinforcements coming in? I've done this. I've been doing it 24 hours a day. Isn't my tour over yet? And the answer is no. It's never over. Some of those experiences as a parent, it's such a primal thing. It's so deep. I say a thing to Christopher at the end of the play. I say this because this is important. This is more important than anything else. This trust, this connection between us. And I've broken it. And so, you know, my whole life really then is devoted to reestablishing that trust. And, you know, family dramas I think are very universal, because I think on some level we can all relate to, whether it's as children or as parents, we can relate to that primal connection.
I find myself thinking, what would Siobhan do? A lot. It's the same thing. There are many of us, most of us are parents, and I do. On a Sunday night, end of the week, tantrum. But she's really she's definitely taught me how to be a nicer person. It's really a great joy to get to be inside somebody who is purely coming from a supportive, understanding place, who genuinely wants to help this person that she cares deeply about. And that is a transformative experience for me, has been so far, and I really am grateful to get to do that for an extended period of time. And I noticed the change in myself as a person in a group of people. And also, I believe my husband, my daughter, and the dog would all say that it has been a good thing.
I had to keep hold of the fact that with any play, I try and think, why did the author write this person? What is this person's job supposed to be to further the story? And so I tried very hard to hold on to that. And Alex is an absolute dream, and Taylor, to play the little scenes that we have together. And I think her job, first of all, that woman is, Mrs. Alexander is totally accepting of him on his own terms. And he who says he doesn't do chatting, starts to do chatting. He interviews some of the neighbors. Some of them are open, several of them are not. But he's, you know, I keep asking questions that he can and wants to answer. So he gets pulled out of his comfort zone a little bit, does just fine with it, thank you very much, and moves on to the next thing. And then inadvertently, I introduce another mystery in the play that I think he already has to be aware of what really happened between his parents. Of course he did. Well, come to find out, he didn't know. But I never meant to give him that information. But that character, in the clever writing, the way it's set up, reveals some things, and then the door opens for him to go on that second journey. And that's my job, and that's what I try to keep clear in the space that I have to push the story along.
Yeah, I would go home from rehearsal and work on the play for another 5 hours, because one thing I realized actually before we started the rehearsal process, but then was made very clear to me when we began it, was just how much there is to Christopher. It's such a privilege and an honor to play a character like that, because he's the most beautiful character I've ever played, and there's an endless amount of discovery and discoveries to be made. I don't know why, but this is popping into my head. It's sort of silly and simple, but one point when he's asked to give up all his items in his pocket to the police station, a piece of string, a red paperclip, key to the front door. The one thing he can't give up is his watch. And I remember talking with Marianne about why that was, and it's numbers and mathematics to him are sort of, I think, it's sort of his religion. It's something he can put himself into and believe in. And it's a measuring system for the world, which he finds very hard to digest sometimes. And he can't give his watch up, not because he won't know what time it is at any given moment, But because if he doesn't have the watch as a measuring system with those numbers to tell him what time it is, he'll begin to think of what time it isn't. And the infinite amount of, like literally infinite amount of possibilities of where he is in space and time. And he'll lose his mind. And playing a character like that, it's just, I can never, ever allow myself to stop exploring and developing him, because I would be doing a disservice to him. To me, he's a real person, and to people like that who I'm representing, and to the play.
There's another star in this show that I want to talk about. Tell me about Toby. I keep hearing...
Diva.
What, Diva?
Diva rat.
So a lot of you know, but that's the rat. That's your, your best friend in the show. Yeah. What was it like working with what's your rat's name? I know it's Toby in the show, but what's the real, do you have a name?
Toby.
Oh, it's Toby.
Oh, that's a she. She
it's
plays
a she. Okay.
Against gender. So
okay.
Very transformative performance.
It's very Shakespearean.
Right.
So what was she like learning to play with her?
Oh, I'm not immediately, like, I was a big fan of rats, not particularly, but actually, and it's funny, because Marion Elliott wanted me to take the rat home, to which I was like, oh, yeah, no, I will, yeah, and then I didn't, and then when she found out that I hadn't, she got mad at me. She was like, oh, well, it was in a very sort of like, correct way. She was sort of looked at me one day and she was like, I heard you didn't take the rat home, is that right? I was like, yeah. She was like, Walked away, I was like, right, that's my sign, I need to take it home and I need to let her know that I have. So I did, and actually the rat, it sort of changed my perception of rats, honestly, in a lot of ways, because they are very clean and they don't have bubonic plague. So I love the rat now. It's like a little puppy with a skin-colored tail, which is, I don't know, it's a complicated relationship.
What is she like for the rest of you backstage, the diva?
I did take, the night that Alex didn't take the rat, I took the rat, and at that time there were two, because they're supposed to be in twos, they need another friend to be with them. And Agnes was the name of the other one. Agnes was not a diva, and consequently Agnes has gone to a different home. Agnes was not interested in being on stage.
Really?
Also, Toby was a bully to Agnes.
No, that's right, Toby was a bully. And they're nocturnal, and I put them in my daughter's bedroom because she thought they were really cute. And I came in the morning and said, she said, they make a lot of noise in the night. I was like, oh shit. Yeah, sorry, honey. But she's great.
Yeah.
She wanders around with Lydia, who's the animal trainer person, wrangler.
Yeah.
And there's the puppy and the rat, and they come in, and the rat loves a hoodie, sits in a hoodie, comes in and out from the car in the stage door in the hoodie, and then she has the bag over her arm with the puppy in, and puppy also.
Yeah.
I could use the word diva. We couldn't we?
I love it.
Depending on the puppy.
We've had 7 puppies, and they all have quite distinct personalities.
During the run already, there's
We're
been 7?
on number 7, yeah.
I guess they get so big really fast. So.
That's that. I mean, Jan can.
Yeah.
I'm going to pass this to Jan. How do you feel about the dogs, Jan?
I do not like the rat.
What about the puppies?
The latest puppy I like a lot. The last one, nightmare. Awful. No, the newest one is great. It is funny. Marianne told, the first time we were in the rehearsal room, and I was the only person in the cast they told, because of course I bring on the puppy. They said, we've got a puppy today, but don't tell anybody. It's going to be great. Just don't tell anybody. So we brought the puppy out, and I think every single person in the room cried.
Aww.
And, Marianne was saying, now, remember that. Every time you do it, it's the first time and everything. And then a few weeks later, we were in tech, and she was saying, oh, the puppies, you'll learn to just get rid of them as soon as you don't like them, and, you'll want a new one right away. And she's right. Now we're very judgmental about the puppies and the quality of their performances. And, the one we have now is pretty good.
Enid, did you take the rat or the puppy home or anything?
My sons love the rat and the dog as well, the dogs, but they began lobbying right away for a rat. And my husband said, never ever bring that rat into my house. So I haven't brought the rat home. But I do think that Toby is a very nice rat. It's amazing. It's amazing how behaved the rat is. You know, like it really doesn't run away like you think it would.
Yeah.
One time it got out actually on the stage. When Christopher first arrives in London, the little cage, I guess, tipped over and she kind of figured out how to open it. And we looked down and there she was just sitting on the deck and Alex, scooped her up and put her in and was like, bad, Toby, no. But I thought, oh my God, what if like she had run into the audience or something? That would have been it.
The night Julie Andrews came to see our show, and I think Toby must have caught wind of that. So when it was her big moment on stage, and we sort of opened the cage to just show her, she popped out and like ran across my shoulders and like just stayed and kept doing passes back and forth like I was a Harlem Globetrotter. And she was just trying to like show off and have her little moment for Julie.
Listen, I want to go back to the beginning for a second for each of you. What was that defining moment for each of you when you said, I want to be an actor?
I can go first.
Okay.
I played the very complex role of Piglet in Winnie the Pooh when I was 7. And it seemed quite well received, so I thought, well, I'm quite good at that. I'll do that. And not because I was sort of like stuck to it no matter what, but because nothing better came up, and I just adored acting, and I always was fascinated with other people and people's behavior and why people did things. And I was a weird kid. I would sort of like inhabit a character that I'd sort of developed, and for like days. My mother would be quite worried as to why I was being a pirate for like 4 days without breaking character. She was like, that's a bit excessive. But so I think it's just a good fit, and I happened to find it quite early, so since I was 7.
That's great.
I went to a school in England that it was set in these amazing grounds, and you could lie under oak trees and whatever. And if you were in the play, it was a summer play, and there was an outdoor theatre that had been there for a long time. And if you were cast in it, was always a Shakespeare play. If you were cast in it, you could take the entire day off of school and go and lie under a tree and learn your lines. And so this was something to be sought after, to be in that certainly was, wow, so-and-so he's lying out there in the sun learning Hamlet, he's 10. But it was really, really respected. And it was something I loved to do, but it was also a greatly respected thing to do, and I think that had a great impression on me. I don't remember having a moment of saying, this is what I want to do. I just knew that there was nothing else that I did want to do. I suppose it's the same thing, but I didn't experience it quite like that. I just thought, oh, no, this is probably seems to be what I'm going to do. And the careers advisor at the equivalent of high school, what are you going to do? And I want to go to theatre school. Oh, that was the response. It wasn't very helpful at that school. But I just kept going. Because I loved it. Yeah.
I was a kind of a lonely kid. I ended up being pretty good at tennis. I was a tennis player, and I was playing tennis at the university. And I didn't really know what I wanted to study. I was in education for a while and sociology for a while. And I had a woman who was from the same town as me who taught acting for non-majors that she taught. And we talked one day, take my class. And she was very warm and encouraging, and so I did. And the following semester, I started taking the curriculum to be a theater major. I was in basic acting. Little did I know it was a very competitive program, a very good theater school at Illinois State in the mid-'80s. And true story, Uta Hagen was there for a week doing a seminar at the school. And it was very competitive. The grad students and maybe a few of the seniors were chosen after rigorous auditions with the faculty to get to work with Uta, during the week. And the rest of us would come and we would watch her seminars. And on Wednesday, she was up there chain smoking and, I'm tired of all these scenes. Anybody who wants to do something, come up here, we'll find something for you. So a bunch of us got up, and I had no idea who this woman was. I had never heard of Uta Hagen before. So I got up in line, and there was a girl behind me. She said, "You guys go do this scene from a J.D. Salinger story called Just Before the War with the Eskimos," I think it's called. And we went back to her dorm room and kind of wrote it out in scene form and stayed up and learned the lines and came back in. I had no idea it was a comedic scene. and I came in, and we're doing the scene, and everybody's laughing. And in my head, I'm thinking, oh my God, toilet paper stuck to my shoe or something, I don't know. So the scene ends, and Uta stubs out her cigarette, and she walks up to me and she kisses me on both cheeks. And she says, "Now this is what I've been talking about." It's a true story.
Wow.
And from that day forward, I've been an actor. So I owe it all to Uta.
I love it. That's awesome. I think my mother always had to make me do things all summer because she had to work, and she signed me up for some theater thing in Galveston, Texas, where I was living, and and I also was in Winnie the Pooh, but playing the secondary role of Owl, but still quite
Owl is a
important
beautiful
part.
role.
But I think really I fell in love with the community. Like as soon as I got into the group of the actors and the students, I just thought, what? Like you could hang out with people that are funny and creative and like to talk like me and don't just say shut up, and like to pretend and then I just kept going back and back it's really. It's been one of the first big love of my life. It's been quite sustaining and exciting and rewarding.
I did a production of a community theater production of The Wizard of Oz, and I was a munchkin when I was 5. And I had a great time. It was so much fun. But our opening night, I peed my pants, or they were tights, like just before curtain call. And so the child wrangler, the guardian backstage was like, well, we're going to have to sit back here and clean you up. And I remember wrestling with her like, I've got to go out there and take my bow. So I think that's maybe when I knew that. It's like, do you hear them applauding? They need me. So that's maybe when I knew that I wanted to be an actor.
I started out thinking I wanted to go into ballet. And I studied for a number of years, right up through university, actually. But little by little, I was drawn to theater. I think because my mother, from the time I was very little, she knew so much poetry. And we would wash and dry dishes, and she would teach me poems, most of which I'd never seen in print, still haven't. But we would do poetry, and she was really wonderful with that. And so I had a great fondness for it. And then late in high school, the woman that ran the glee club was Mrs. Bolling. She was German. And she didn't so much cast as say, you will play this and you will play that. And she said to me, and you will play Katasha. I said, Mrs. Bolling, I don't read music. I have seen you in the corridors. You will play Katasha. And so I did. And I thought, boy, that was fun. And so I started heading in that direction. And then in university, I took the plunge and majored in it. And almost from the first day, very good teachers and so on. And I realized I was home. I was where I was supposed to be. And that's how it happened. But it was kind of an evolution.
Thank you for those beautiful stories. I love that. We have a few questions from the audience. Some you've already answered. One is, you recently performed an autism-friendly version of the show, a performance you did. What changes did they make to the show, and what did that performance mean to each of you?
The changes they made were, and jump in if you think of anything, but they basically, it was, well, because the show is sort of designed to overwhelm somebody who might be called, neurotypical and make them feel like they're on the spectrum. So for someone on the spectrum, it would be so insane. So it was softening lights, making like certain projections or strobing like less intense, softening the music, and our fight scene actually between the father and Christopher was just made less intense. In nature. So that was right. I mean, that's everything, right? I think.
Like the house lights.
Oh, the house lights were like 30% up as well, and they were encouraged because it was their families as well. If they felt overwhelmed or like they didn't want to be in the theater at that time, they could stand up. Hence, the house lights would make that easier, and go downstairs and chill out and sort of like relax and regroup or whatever. And it was an incredible experience. It was very special. I mean, it was a lot. What I'd gathered from it by the end was that the families that had come, the family units, were not used to having going out as an entire unit, especially to something like the theatre, because there was lots of noises of all kinds, repeating back of lines that they could hear. And of course that, if you as a family went to see a play and that would be happening, people would probably ask you to leave, or you'd be judged, or in some way it would be awkward for you. And so to have the space which was so totally safe for all of them, and on top of that, I mean, they've done it at Lion King and everything like that, because kids on the spectrum often love like Disney music and everything. But on top of that, it was super special for them to sort of see the hero of a story that's very like them, and have a representation and a story that they can relate to, and on such a profound level. The family, not just the kids on the spectrum, but the parents and the audience. So it was just very moving. It was also challenging, as an actor, just because the noises, the level of concentration had to be sort of amped up quite a bit just to be able to sort of stay on track. But it was, I don't know, it was, by the end, I was just an absolute wreck. As I think we all were. It was the most memorable and meaningful experience I've ever had in the theatre, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I would say the same thing. At the end was particularly the question that Christopher asks of Siobhan. And I'm facing out. He asks me the question and I have to figure out what I'm going to say. And knowing that I'm looking at an entire audience of families, people who live with this question, was very hard to stay. Well, it was really happening, and we were not. There wasn't a dry eye on the stage for sure. And yes, technically, it was at the beginning. There was so much. There was just a lot of response. There was some very moving responses that happened when I said. He says, "Can I come and live with you?" I say, "No, because I'm not your mother." There was a young voice who just repeated that line quite loudly, surprising me. I mean, out of all the lines that hadn't heard any been repeated, that was the one that came out very clearly. And it was initially hard to figure out if you were even being heard or if you were being listened to. And then as I began to hear other people speaking, I had the same. Absolutely, the focus, the excitement, of being there. It was a thrilling, and a very heart-rending afternoon.
Just echoing all of that. It was unusual, certainly. I think all actors grumble, when there are noises in the house, during a quiet scene. And there were lots of noises in the house pretty much throughout the show, although there were scenes that seemed to distill the room.
Yeah.
I remember our fight scene got real quiet for a while. But the overall energy, especially as you say, as it came toward the end, and this journey of Christopher's being so heroic, and he gets his A star, and he's feeling his potential as an individual in the world. It was very, very moving. As Frankie said, those questions were so ripe in all of those people in the whole house. Things that I think for the rest of us we somehow take for granted, that for them are so very real and intense. So it was all of that.
I would simply say I was very aware of playing to a bunch of parents who, were heroic daily, dealing with big challenges and trying to understand someone who is really different from, the norm, and, feeling a big responsibility to try to tell, this version of that story as well as I could.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say it was the most appreciative audience we've ever had. Because like Alex was saying, there have been some Disney musicals that have done this a relaxed performance before, but The Curious Incident is the first Broadway play to have ever accommodated, children and teenagers on the spectrum. So that was enormous. It was also neat because the technical elements were sort of not as present. It let the story sort of shine through again like it had in the rehearsal room, and that was really beautiful to see. Again, I used to weep every day watching the rehearsals when there were no lights and there were no projections, and to see it still be just as effective was really neat. And there was this amazing moment. All of the kids who came to see the show were given like fidget toys, like things to squeeze when you're feeling stressed out. And I think there was a moment in Act 2 and one of the boys sitting in the front row stood up to try to hand his fidget toy to Alex, who was on stage, because he knew that Christopher in that moment needed a lot more than he did. And I, like that and the rest of the 2.5 hours, I don't think I stopped crying. It was incredible.
All through the performance, I think all of us were hearing the lines for the first time through the ears of parents who have been dealing with this for a very long time. Toward the end, there's a scene where Frankie runs up and says, no, don't do this now. Nobody wants to hear the answer to a maths problem in a play. And a little voice, a little girl, not far from the stage, yelled out clearly, "I do." And you have to hold on to yourself. But again and again, I think we got ambushed by very emotional lines. One is, Alex, you can help me out. And if you have difficult things...
If you have difficult things in your life, it is nice to think of them as what is called negligible, which means they're so small you don't need to take them into account when you're calculating something. Now
think about that, and think about the audience that we've been playing to for 2.5 hours. And it was just incredibly moving, and we were all so grateful to be able to share this play with them and give them a wonderful afternoon.
So beautiful. Thank you for being here and doing what you do.
Thank you.
The cast of The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime.